some of the other points that I have to focus on this particular talk is the concept of Gotra. So, from a very fundamental level, Gotra is something to do with the cow. And most of the dictionary definitions, it's like a cow pen. So from there, so this is the word meaning of the Gotra. So this is also the reason why, because the settlement, how do you people settle? Because one of the reason is that they have cattle, and for a long period, when you have cattle, you will be like slightly moving. So it's something like a pastoral life that you will have. But ultimately, when you want to produce, when it becomes an economy of cow economy, where you may have to settle down in a particular location, and then in that location you started growing, and that is how the settlement start growing, and that is why all the rishis are mentioned as rishi gotras. So starting from the early Ṛgvedic period, even maybe earlier than the Ṛgveda, all these people had a pastoral life, and slowly they started settled into agriculture. And when say they have an agriculture, definitely they stop moving. So they started settling in different villages, and then they have basically their economy. Foundation of their economy is cow. Cow produce milk, and from milk you get curd, many products like butter, ghee. So these were actually kind of economy that was existed in that period. Cow was also considered as equivalent to wealth. So, for example, Gomati, there is a river name. It means a river rich in cows. It also means a river that produces a lot of wealth. So it's a kind of a wealthy, affluent region. So just like today, currency, or even more than that, cow was very well kind of a symbol of the wealth itself. So that is how the concept of Gotra comes in. So we had primarily the Rishi Gotras, Vishwamitra Gotra, Vasishta Gotra. Then you have this Bharadwaja Gotra, Gautama Gotra. So all this, based on each Gotras, you have a different family. Like the family, this is again Gotra actually. So Gotra Mandalas. So here Bharadwaja, Vishwamitra, Vasishta, and this is Gautama Gotra. So like that we have Gotras. So that is one thing. And we have the definition, like for example, Gotra means basically it's the close family, and then you have Kula, mostly applied to the rishis as well as for the rajas, like Ikshwaku, or if it is for Raja, Ikshwaku, or Ayla, or Bharata, or Puru, all these are like that. And then we have Vamsha, again mostly applied on to the rajas, like Surya Vamsha, Chandra Vamsha, Ikshwaku Vamsha, Puru Vamsha, like that. So that is how it has been shown. And second point is about narrative continuity. I have just mentioned, because maybe last week after our after my talk, many people I tried to read Ṛgveda. I have seen people asking for the link towards the Ṛgvedic text in original Ṛgvedic text and the English translations, etc. So anybody have gone through Ṛgveda will first they will notice is the narrative continuity. It is absent in the Ṛgveda. So you cannot start reading Ṛgveda from the first sukta of the first mandala onwards, and then think about a kind of a continuity or anything. So that is one reason that people are not able to read Ṛgveda like they read Ramayana or Mahabharata. And this is also one, I mean, not exactly the same reason, but Ṛgveda is considered as a Sruti, and the Itihasa Puranas are considered as a Smriti. So the meaning, the actual literal meanings are like, from Sruti is something that you listen, that is something that is heard, because Ṛgveda is always recited. It is only in that like recent centuries we had a capability to record anything, like on palm leaves or on the piece of paper, etc. So Ṛgveda is always heard, and Itihasa and Puranas are called Smriti because compared to the Ṛgveda, they are very large. So it has to be memorized memorized by multiple people. Basically, that is how all the smritis were transmitted orally till date. Rigveda is 10 mandalas and around 1028 suktas. But if you think about Ramayana, is 4 times bigger than that, and Mahabharata is 4 times bigger than Ramayana. So these are all very large. So they have to be memorized very strongly. And of course, Rigveda is also memorized, but it is basically the word Shruti is applied and the classification is provided as part of the tradition. So Shruti texts are considered as very sacred, and then that is the other reason you don't read Rigveda like you read the Smriti text like Ramayana and Mahabharata. So narrative continuity is another thing that many people might have directly experienced that. And the second part is a geographical and chronological analysis. Again, because that is a subject of our entire program. So why it is important is because some of the information are captured in Rigveda, and Rigveda is such a text which is having very less modification in the later period. And this is agreed by even by the IIT theorist who is opposing IIT. So we have whatever data inside the Rigveda is considered as very stable and very clear and very authentic. So that is another reason. So whatever geographical data and chronological data found in the Rigveda becomes a kind of a foundation for whatever we will subsequently get from Ramayana or Mahabharata or Puranas, because these texts have undergone a lot of changes, and there was no methodology by which you can prevent evolution of Ramayana or Rigveda in the later period. So whatever data in that, we have to have so many number of additional analysis to ensure that those data are very ancient and authentic. But in case of Rigveda, this kind of difficulties are lesser. So it offers very less narrative continuity, but it offers very high data integrity. So that is why whenever anybody studies the data, geographical, chronological data in the Ramayana or Mahabharata, and started defining some theories, if they have not gone through or studied the Ṛgvedic data, the Ṛgvedic chronology or geography, high chance that they will be misled, they will get disoriented, and they will end up discovering something which is not correct, or they may get into wrong theories, etc. So that is why the geographical and chronological analysis of Veda, the Ṛgveda, primarily the Ṛgveda, and connecting it with the Itihasa Puranas, that is a very important, and that is how we will be able to solve the Bharatiya prehistory. Because in our schools we have very good clarity from the Chandragupta Maurya or Mahapadmananda. So only the Magadha dynasty, we have which is came very late. After the Pandavas, everybody left. After many centuries passed after the Pandavas, then the Magadha dynasty started growing in the Bihar region, and that is only the period from which we have clarity based on the existing historical analysis. So the remaining history is embedded; it is hidden inside the Itihasa Puranas and the Vedas like Ṛgveda. So this is one very important methodology, and important that we need to study the geographical and chronological data inside the Ṛgveda. And only after that you define it, you formalize it, you filter it, you distill it, make it very stable. Then only you should look into the Ramayana or Mahabharata and start looking at the patterns inside that for for the chronology and the geographical data. So that is another important point I need to stress that in that. And this is like this is a part of the chronology itself. So I just briefly touch upon it. Unlike the first this particular imagery or this diagram, I don't insist that anybody memorize this one, because it's the next level of detailing. But at least people can remember that there are late suktas in the early mandalas. So all this whatever in the image what you are seeing are the early mandalas. Mandala 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all of these are like excluding the late mandalas, all of them are here. And there are two sources for defining which are the late suktas in the early mandalas. So this definition is required only in the early mandalas. Because when you do chronological analysis, some data may fall into the late suktas in the early mandalas. And so this information is very important. So one source of it is a traditional source, that's Aitareya Brahmana. And this is in green color, I have shown it. And the Aitareya Brahmana declare that these sukta numbers 30, 31, up to 30, 31, 34, 36, 38, and 48. So the green color suktas, the Aitareya Brahmana says these suktas in the Ṛgveda in the third mandala are late suktas. That is in the Vishwamitra mandala, they have defined these many as the late suktas. And the remaining blue color, they are actually based on the study of Oldenburg. So here it is very interesting that both the Bharatiya tradition and the Oldenburg, that is a Westerner, both have jointly defined the late suktas in the early mandalas, and this both information is very important for anybody who study the chronology of the Ṛgveda. Primarily because this is very important, because some data which you take for analysis may fall into this late this suktas of the early Ṛgvedic period, and you should understand that it is relatively later. Then otherwise your analysis may sometimes fail. And the probability of this happening is not 100%, but there is a 50 to 30% chance that if you don't understand this particular detail of chronology, there may be some issues in whatever inferences that you make. Just and nobody need to memorize this, because anybody can always refer to the sukta number by going to this diagram. And similar is the situation. So this will end our chronological analysis. This particular session today is the chronological map of the first mandala, because it's a little bit complex in terms of chronology compared to the other 9 mandalas. Because as we have in the diagram shows, the 10th, the first mandala is distributed into so many different blocks, some falling into the early period, some in the middle, some in the late, and some others which is not very clearly into the middle or late. So because of that, we have this breakup of the suktas within the first mandala. Again, this is also no need to memorize this this particular part again, because it's again another level of detail of the chronology of the Ṛgveda. But just ensure that, for example, the color, like for example, there is a color code here. The early is shown in red color. So this Madhuchandas, Parashara, Srinashepa. So those composers that considered as early, and then middle one, this green color, you can see Nadas, Gautama, etc. Then you have general A and general B, 2 categories which can be either middle or late. They are like color coded like black and yellow here. So you have Agastya here in the yellow color, and then Dirghatamas and Savya, all of this. This is in the general. It can be middle or late Ṛgvedic suktas. The Kutsa is here again in the general, and Kakshivan, like that. So this is a kind of a next level detailing of the chronology of the Ṛgveda. So both this one and this particular diagram and this particular diagram, these are not for memorization, or because you can always, whenever a doubt comes, you can refer and come back. When any data falls in any of the suktas mentioned, then you can understand relatively what is the chronological positioning of those suktas. But this one is something which everybody should have a mental picture, so that in other subsequent classes, other sessions, we are very clear that this is the thing. So with that, I conclude. I think I took more than what I planned for, but we will have a 10 to 15 minutes of discussion and then wind up the today's.
Is it okay to ask questions?
Yeah, yes.
Just two questions I have. One which is around Vishwamitra, around Vasishtha.
Okay.
So now, based on what I see, the mandala aging, Vasishtha seem to have taken over from Vishwamitra.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of Puranic stories also talks about actually Vishwamitra fighting with Vasishtha and then attaining the Brahmarshi stage, things like that. So that indicates Vasishtha actually was before Vishwamitra, but the Vedic mandala calendaring indicates reverse. So if
Yeah.
you can-
Yeah, and I request all the participants around 26 of the to avoid switching on the video and audio during the session, because it may distract others. So this is a general request to everybody. Make sure that that it's because maybe because our session may go into very high detail, and then that distraction can be the thing that prevents us from understanding what is being discussed. Yeah. So to answer the question, yeah. Again, this is also mentioned in my book, but I will clarify it here itself. So when you take any kind of Puranic data, right, because Puranas are authored after many, for example, the Ṛgvedic 10th mandala period. After that, after a long period of many centuries elapsed, some of the Puranas are authored. So it can contain, I mean, the Puranas, what that does is it makes some lot of innovations about many things which are like absent. Like, for example, Rigveda and after Rigveda, the primary sources of information is Mahabharata and Ramayana. So any information there, it's not found in them. The Puranic authors actually create some innovative stories around it wherever the gap is there, because people, when they narrate the different narratives or different stories about ancient personalities, a lot of questions people ask. For example, when in the Rigveda itself, somebody notes that now in the third mandala, the Vishwamitra was the advisor to Sudas, and in the seventh mandala it was Vasishtha. Naturally, everybody asked what happened to Vishwamitra. So this kind of questions, the Puranic authors will try to answer that with some narrative. So we have to look at the information in the Puranas, the conflict about between Vasishtha and Vishwamitra, everything from this particular point. So I have done an analysis, because this particular question require analyzing the data in the Rigveda as well as in the two Itihasas. Both of them mention the conflict between Vasishtha and Vishwamitra. So, and there are certain elements inside the conflict which clearly shows that is a late Ṛgvedic events. Some of the late Ṛgvedic elements are found in this particular narrative of between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha. So I looked at very closely at the data. So both in the Ramayana, it is mentioned when Gautama's son Shatanika, he mentioned to Sri Rama about the conflict between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha. And in the Mahabharata, while the Arjuna was very like they were close to Ganga on their way from Ekachakra to Kampilya for the marriage of Panchali. That time a Gandharva named Angaraparna, he started describing about the conflict between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha. So I have analyzed both of the narratives about the Vishwamitra-Vasishtha conflict and recognized certain elements in that in both the narratives which are like late Ṛgvedic. So that means I have to conclude that there was certainly a conflict between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha, but not exactly the same Vishwamitra and Vasishtha who were the advisor to the Sudas. They were also, so we have an early Ṛgvedic Vishwamitra and Vasishtha who were advisor to King Sudas and their descendants. So Vishwamitra's descendants and Vasishtha's descendants, all of them identifying themselves as their famous ancestor. So this is not, I'm not just saying it from thin air, because in the Ṛgveda, in the 10th mandala, in the late Ṛgvedic, many of the mandalas, we have composers who compose suktas with the name Vasishtha and Vishwamitra. So this is a kind of, for example, in the historical, you have Chandragupta 1, Chandragupta 2, or in the Iranian lineage, you have Xerxes I, Xerxes II, they may be like separated by many centuries. The descendants, most of the descendants in royal families and ascetic families, they assume the name of their famous ancestor. So we had many Vasishtas and Vishwamitras in the late Ṛgvedic period. They were composing suktas in the name of Vishwamitra and Vasishta. So we don't know what are their real names. Their parents could have named them Vishwamitra and Vasishta, for example, or they may be composing suktas using the pen name of their famous ancestor. And during the late Ṛgvedic period, again, this is the cultural difference, right? It becomes very, the Varna system becomes a little bit hardened, wherein a Brahmana is supposed to be doing yajna and tapas, whereas Kshatriyas are doing ruling the kingdom or fighting in the battles, etc. And that kind of systems started coming somewhere in the late Ṛgvedic 10th Mandala period and even later than that. So these narratives between conflict between Vishwamitra and Vasishta are basically a reflection of the society which evolved late Ṛgveda in the late Ṛgvedic period and the post Ṛgvedic period, that is the period after the 10th Mandala. So that is the conclusion I can make. So this particular stories about Vishwamitra Vasishta conflict cannot be directly taken into defining any sequence in the Ṛgvedic mandalas. So I think I answered.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One last question. While we are discussing Ṛgveda with reference to geography and timeline, just curious, does this also corroborate with the other Vedas like Yajur, Sama, and Atharva?
Yes. For example, the last individual in the Kuru lineage mentioned in the Ṛgveda is Shantanu. And similarly, we have a situation in Yajurveda, the last individual in the Kuru lineage mentioned in the Yajurveda is Dhritarashtra. That is the grandson of Shantanu. Okay. And in Atharvaveda, the last Kuru king mentioned is Parikshit. Again, from Dhritarashtra, Pandu, then you have Arjuna, then Abhimanyu and Parikshit. So he is the great grandson of Dhritarashtra and Pandu. So it's a 4th generation again going. So we can very much conclude that, see, we don't know the starting point of it, but you can know the end point. So very much we can say that Ṛgveda concluded by the period of Shantanu, and Yajurveda concluded by the period of Dhritarashtra, and Atharvaveda concluded by the period of Parikshit. So we can also expect information, geographical and chronological information recorded in the Atharvaveda till the period of Parikshit. And correspondingly in Yajurveda, you can expect them till the period of Dhritarashtra. And in Ṛgveda, you can expect it until the period of Shantanu. Like that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think we can conclude. Any other questions?
Yes, Jidati. So I'm sorry for the background noise. I'm at a beach, but I'm just walking away. So the question was that you mentioned that Vishwamitra was just not an advisor in the priestly sense, but also, he was the warrior as well, warrior advisor. Was Bharadwaj the same? Any clues on that?
For Bharadwaja, there are not some events mentioned like for Vasishta and Vishwamitra. Similarly, for Bharadwaja, not much is mentioned, but it is very clear Bharadwaja's genetically Bharadwaja contributed to the Bharata dynasty, because in Mahabharata you see Bharata's son Bhumanyu was actually a son of Bharadwaja. So Bharadwaja and Bharata, they are not very much different actually. It is also possible they are almost the same identical people. That is why the name also very similar, Bharata and Bharadwaja. So in that sense, definitely some of the Bharadwajas also become part of the Bharata lineage because of the intermixing of their lineages. So definitely even Bharadwaja have both the qualities. The Bharadwaja lineage also like warrior quality as well as priestly qualities.
Right. One last question. I got that. How do you conclude that Shantanu is the same Shantanu that we see in Mahabharata?
So it is like, for example, In the Rigveda, you don't get so much amount of data to define whether a person is particularly exactly the same person, but definitely it throws a lot of corroborative evidence, because Shantanu and Devapi is mentioned, and it is one person can be mentioned, but two persons related to Mahabharata cannot be mentioned together. So like that, there are a lot of clues, and that is how we define Shantanu of the Rigveda and Shantanu of the Mahabharata as the same.
So in your conclusion, that means that Ramayana must have happened somewhere after the 10th mandala, but before the Atharva Veda.
Yeah, so just like the Shantanu, we have Rama also mentioned in the 10th mandala, which indicates a contemporaneous between Rama and Shantanu. And we will come to this point again, because we have a big chapter on the Sarayu and Rama in the Ṛgvedic itself. But putting short, whatever data indicated in the Ṛgveda with the reference to Rama in the 10th mandala, which is clearly, very clearly we can say it is not Rama Jamadagnya, because he is also mentioned separately. That is not Parshurama. So, and of course, the Balarama is out of question. So, out of within the three Ramas, who are very famous, we can very clearly say it is Sri Rama himself. Now, the only question is that if there are many, some other kings with the name Rama, that is a possibility. But then a lot of circumstantial evidences, which I will be explaining very clearly in the chapter itself when we discuss that session, which points to Sri Rama again.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can conclude with this.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, any further questions you can put in WhatsApp, and once the video is uploaded into YouTube, again there also questions can be put in, and like that. So that way we will be able to, like, any further questions we can address.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Let us conclude by Shanti Mantras. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavan. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavan. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavan. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.